Hello. Today we have the great pleasure of talking to David Harrington, founding member of the Kronos Quartet. David, thank you so much for joining us for this interview. We're really honored to be talking to you and hear a little bit about your life um, as a quartet.
Well,
Um,
it's my pleasure to be with you right now.
Lovely. So let's dive in. What were the circumstances that led to the forming of the Kronos Quartet?
Well, I'd grown up since age 12 playing string quartet music. And as a kid, it was always my favorite thing to do. And by age 16, the group that I was in when I was in high school began working with a composer who was writing a piano quintet. And we got to every week go to his house and play the next few measures or next few pages of this piano quintet. And so we felt involved in the composition. And by the time were ready to perform, it was as though we knew this secret that the rest of the world didn't know anything about yet. And by the time we got out on the stage, it was so much fun to just reveal this to the audience. And so at age 16, I kind of became an addict, I have to say. And the addiction was having direct contact with the composers. And then time went on. You know, I graduated from high school. I tried to find my way through college and all the things that go with that. But in around 1970, I finally found my teacher. And what I mean by that is, I was lucky. I had, teachers from a young age. But by age 20, there was this one particular person who became my teacher for the next 30 years. And I think about her every day, actually. Um, and her name was Vita Reynolds. And we would have these fabulous lessons, just marvelous lessons. And I mean, it's taking me a while to answer your question because what happened really quickly. It was you have to remember that the war in America's war in Vietnam was going on when I was growing up, and uh, finding music that felt right to play when you were seeing people of your own age dying on television, live on television, on the news, when there was a lot of protest in the streets. There were a lot of things going on, and our society was in turmoil. Um, and somehow, a lot of the music that I had played and heard up to that point didn't feel like it was actually related to what I was feeling um, walking down the street of Seattle, Washington, until August of 1973. And on the radio late one night in early August, I heard this amazing music by George Crumb, this piece called Black Angels. Well, I'd never heard of George Crumb. I'd never heard any music even remotely like that. And that one piece, it to me felt like it brought together the worlds of Schubert, of Jimi Hendrix, of noise, of wild performance, of all kinds of interesting sounds that could be made on these instruments. And it felt to me like the string quartet as a genre was alive and open and available to make a statement that felt right at that moment in my own life and in our American history. And so what I did is the next day after hearing that piece, I found out who George Crumb was. I found out who his publisher was. And I didn't have a credit card in those days. So I had what I had to do when I called the publisher in New York and I convinced whoever it was on the phone that I would send them the money, but they had to send me the score right away. Somehow, a couple days later, I got the score in the mail. Took one look at it and realized, okay, not only do I have to play this piece, but in order to play it, I'm going to have to get a group together that will spend a lot of time and prepare itself to be able to do the kind of things that are required to do in Black Angels. And so on September 1st, 1973, is when Kronos had its first rehearsal. And the very first piece we started rehearsing with, when I think about it now, it's so kind of bizarre, but the first piece was Webern's Six Bagatelles. And we worked on that for a long time. And then there was also Bartók's Third Quartet and that composer I mentioned who was writing the piano quintet when I was 16 years old has remained a close friend of mine. And he's now in his 90s. But he began to write a new piece for Kronos right as we began our first rehearsals. And if you're interested, you can hear that piece on the 25th anniversary box set of recordings. The composer's name is Ken Benchoff, and the piece's name is Traveling Music. And the reason I'm talking to you, both of you, right now is because Traveling Music is such a good piece. And we had so much fun putting it together. And we got so much encouragement from the process of, examining what this wonderful composer had made for us, listening to all what he had to say and using all the evidence that he gave us and making an interpretation. And hearing Black Angels and then having Ken Benchoff writing a piece for us, those two things just gave me so much energy and so much lift. And I've really been lucky because 50 years later, I'm still getting energy and lift from so many places.